Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday webinar, round 2. Thanks for joining us all in. As last time, we're very privileged to have Louise with us again today. She's given up her time to run through her session that I know many of you are looking forward to. Lots of us to learn in this space, which is great. I think we're going to get a lot of value out of it. Louise, thank you very much for joining us. Louise is a registered dietitian, good 16 or 17 years experience. She is over in the UK at the moment, but still has her roots in South Africa a little bit, as you'll hear when she starts speaking. She's an expert in, well, amongst other things, but women's health specifically she's got an interest in. And today's session is all around the menopause, and her insight and takeaways around navigating this time, the transition, and what to expect both from sort of nutrition and lifestyle strategies that might support it. So I'm going to hand over to Louise and she's going to run through the session with us. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to pop it into the chat, and we'll save a little bit of time towards the end for a Q&A for anything that this might stimulate for you. I'm going to hand over to you, Louise, and guys, enjoy the session.
Excellent. Thank you, Adrian. And hi, everybody. Thank you for coming back. Apologies again for last week. So yes, as Adrian was saying, I am a dietitian. Now my screen is not working. There we go. And I've been doing this for about 16 years with a very big interest in women's health and balancing hormones and gut health, and then cardiovascular wellness. Very functional approach to wellness. And I only have about 30 minutes today, so that means we can't really dive too deeply into too much. And the menopause is a really big topic. It's overflowing all the time, and there's a lot of information out there, whether it's right or wrong, different story, but there is a lot of information. So I'm going to try get as much as I can into this 30 minutes. And of course, we are talking very surface level stuff. You know, your nutrition strategies and your fitness strategies should always be personalized. But we can always take things away from a very general approach. So let's dive in. What is the menopause? I'm sure we all know the definition of the menopause. But before I dive into that, I think it's really important that we make sure that we all understand that the menopause will affect everyone, absolutely everyone. Yes, as females, we are the ones who go through the menopause, but it will affect, you know, partners, husbands, brothers, fathers, children. Everybody is affected by the menopause at some point. So I think it's amazing that we are talking a lot more about it, and that there's a lot more openness about the situation. So if you are going through the menopause, or if your partner is, you know, don't tread lightly, but don't be afraid to talk about it, because the more we talk about things, the more normal they become. So the menopause, as we know, is when there is no menstruation for 12 months. But the actual menopause is 1 day. So the lead up to the menopause, the perimenopause, could be 10 years, it could be 15 years. In fact, from the age of 35 already, our egg quality starts to decrease. So that shows you that our hormone changes are already starting from then. So it could be, 10 to 15 years. And often this is the hardest part, because we're navigating changes. We're having to change almost everything, which we'll see as we go through, so that we can feel good within ourselves, and our life can feel a little bit better. So it is basically mostly half of our life, if you think about it. So we really need to do things properly, and we really need to start chasing wellness. And I stress this almost every day in my clinics, because we always chase weight. And it's time to park that. It's very hard because we've all been conditioned that way. But it's time to start chasing wellness so that we can feel better as we go through the rest of our lives. So there are a number of changes that happen during the menopause. most of them I think we all know, but I'm just going to put them into little blocks. If we start on the hormonal side, obviously we have our estrogen and progesterone that drops in the beginning, then the testosterone follows, and that, is really the beginning of the whole thing. But also important to note that estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, so our sex hormones, are not the only hormones that are affected by this whole thing. There's a really big gut change. So gut health should always be important. But when it comes to the menopause, we need to focus a little bit more because our dopamine and serotonin levels and cortisol, so our happy hormones and our stress hormones, are produced inside the gut. So it's really important that we start focusing there so that these hormones can remain high, so that we can stay happy rather than down, feeling very anxious and depressed. But yes, so those hormone changes, it's important to know that it's not only the sex hormones, but also our emotional hormones as well. If we look at the metabolic changes, so those changes are happening inside our bodies, but it's what we see on the outside. So we start to get this weight gain that happens, and it's usually around the middle. Most women, more than 50% of women, will gain weight, and it's about a pound or 2.2 kilograms in a year. So, if you look at that in a year, it's not really a lot. But if you take that over 10 to 15 years, then it does add up a little bit. So no wonder as we get into our 50s and mid 50s, we start to feel very uncomfortable because that is quite a bit of weight that we've gained over those years. The weight gain around the middle is where the problem comes in, because that has a direct relation, to our cardiovascular wellness. So the waist circumference is really important that we watch that. Weight itself is not really a good indicator of health. So we're always talking about weight, but it's not really the indicator of health. We need to have a look at our body composition. And with all these metabolic changes and the hormone changes, our body composition starts to shift. So we see a big drop in muscle mass and a big increase in fat mass. And as the waist circumference starts to get bigger, so the visceral fat, which is the fat on the inside around the organs, starts to increase as well. And that's where the risk for disease starts to come through. So like I said, there's the cardiovascular disease, there's also the insulin resistance, cholesterol, blood pressure, all of those type of things. Then we have a look at the emotional changes. We all know about the emotional changes. We're up, we're down, we've got a short fuse, we're super excited, we're very tired, got lots of energy. All of these things every day sometimes. It's like having 4 seasons in one day. But we all know about those emotional changes, and that is to do with your estrogen and progesterone, but also to do with the dopamine and the cortisol levels. So everything is up and down all the time. Then if we have a look at the psychosocial side of things, it's very much linked to that emotional side, because what's happening on the social side of our lives affects that emotional side even before we get to the menopause. So it's something that we've learned to deal with our whole lives, but suddenly it gets very, very overwhelming during this time. So we have a body image change, which naturally is going to affect anybody's confidence. There's a very big change in libido often. So when your sex drive changes, there's a big drop in confidence as well. Family roles also seem to change. We are spinning lots of plates. Our children are getting older. Sometimes our children are leaving home. So that's an emotional game in itself. We have aging parents during this time as well. Work changes for various reasons. Social networks change because we feel like we grow out of our friends, but actually we're just an emotional mess. There's a lot of divorce that tends to happen during this time. So it's very, very up and down. And all of these changes are mostly due to that hormonal shift that starts to happen. And that produces the perfect storm. Okay, so it's the perfect storm for weight gain, because if you think about all of these changes that we've just spoken about, when we have poor body image and we're not confident in ourselves, we are very emotional, a lot of us turn to food for comfort, or we don't want to exercise because we're not feeling good about ourselves, a whole lot of different things. So this adds up to the perfect storm for weight gain. But not only the weight gain, like I was mentioning just now, that weight gain sits around the tummy, which leads to that insulin resistance and a metabolic syndrome. Bone density is another problem that comes up during the menopause because of the estrogen drop and the digestive issues. And then, like I have mentioned before, but I need to just stress it because I work a lot in cardiovascular wellness, and it's really important to note that the biggest concern for women over the age of 45 is cardiovascular disease. The leading cause of death in women over 45, surpassing cancer. So it's really, really important that we pay attention to our wellness, because on the inside, while, like I said, the visceral fat is getting more, as our estrogen drops, so the cholesterol starts to increase. So it's things that we can't see that we need to start preventing. And then, of course, we have depression and anxiety. A lot of women get diagnosed during this time. And while we can't stop the depression or take it away using food, we can definitely improve how we feel when we improve our gut health. So you can see how the whole picture needs to come about. It's actually not only about a piece of food. We need to take our whole lifestyle and put it together. So it's awfully gloomy if you look at what I've just said with all of these changes and, how we can get really down in the dumps about the whole thing. But let's reframe the whole thing. Obviously, in this talk, we're talking about nutrition and lifestyle. So I'm not going to mention HRT because it's not part of what I do, but I'm not saying that we don't need the hormone therapy. We really are only talking about nutrition and lifestyle here. And if you do focus on your lifestyle and your nutrition, things improve tenfold. I've seen so many women in my clinics who they walk in crying and they actually don't know what to do with themselves. 3, 4, 5 months later, they are completely different people and they've changed nothing except lifestyle and nutrition. So it really, really is important. Important to remember that there's no longer a quick fix. There's no such thing. There never was, but when we are younger, our bodies respond a lot quicker. And like I said in the beginning, it's time to start chasing wellness and not weight. We need to break our habits because so many people make these beautiful big changes, but they're not getting anywhere. But they don't get anywhere because our habits are stopping us from making the progress, right? Like for example, you might change and you're focusing a lot more on protein and everything else, but then your snacking, the habitual snacking hasn't changed. So we don't see much progress because of the small things. So we need to make those habits change, which is very, very difficult. And then we need to start sticking to a good routine. So something that is we can maintain and sustain. If you have a quick look at that circle on the side, this is an hour discussion on its own, but I've put it here because it's really important to note, like I've said a number of times, that it's a whole lifestyle approach, and your nutrition alone, we need to focus from nutrition into gut health, because our gut affects the hormone balance, like I've mentioned, but your gut health also directly affects what you're eating. And then what you're eating and your gut health will affect how you exercise. Because if you're feeling bloated and horrendous in your gut, you're not going to want to do certain types of exercises. Our sleep, for example, is affected by what we eat. It's affected by our hormone balance and, of course, our stress. So everything is interrelated. And we need to make sure that every single day we are looking at that whole circle, not just bits of it. So we need to check in every single day and commit to your wellness in all of those different circles that are up there. So what is the best diet? What should we be doing? Because there is so much information. At the moment, everybody on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, wherever we find our information, everyone has become a nutrition expert, and we fall for different things. We fall for the quick fix. And the truth is, any diet will work. Anything will work if you can stick to it. And I think that's the key, right? We change things, and because we are so used to instant gratification in a world where everything happens like that, we don't give ourselves time. We don't give our bodies time to change. So anything will work, but we always want to base everything on research. We want to base things on science so that we know that we are healthy on the inside, the things that we can't see. So the only diet that has really good research behind it for the menopause is actually the Mediterranean diet. Good fats, lots of fiber, moderate alcohol. Yes, we're not taking the alcohol out unless it affects you. Lean proteins, it's all there. Good complex carbohydrates, it's there to keep us well. And the trick when it comes to the menopause is to balance our blood glucose throughout the day. So when we're cutting things out, we can't be balancing that blood glucose. We need to learn how to respond to our hunger. So it's about bringing yourself towards yourself and being a lot more mindful. So I'm not necessarily talking about mindfulness as in yoga practice mindfulness, because a lot of people don't enjoy that side. It's about pulling yourself towards yourself. Stop living over here in this fast-paced world that we are in, and become very mindful about what your body needs. Are you hungry? Are you tired? Do you need to go for a walk? Do you need to exercise? All of these different things, we need to know what your body is feeling. And obviously we want the lifelong plan. So how do we do this? There are so many different tips that I can give you. These are the ones that stand out the most when I talk to the ladies in my clinics. And of course, again, like I said right in the beginning, your nutrition always needs to be personalized. We personalize our medication, we personalize everything, even our personal training schedules. We personalize our exercise. So we need to personalize your nutrition because your body is different to the next person. So if we go through this list briefly, we want to prioritize protein. We know that. Everyone talks about it. But I'm also a big believer in if you understand why and what things do inside your body, you're more likely to stick to things. So protein is a really powerful regulator in your body. It influences our cravings. Might not take them away because there's other things involved there, but it definitely decreases your cravings. And it also helps to balance our hormones out. Protein leaves you feeling more full. So if you prioritize protein on your plate, often the snacking then starts to decrease. And obviously it helps with muscle regeneration. When we talk about exercise, we'll get there. So that's improving your body composition. And then protein is also important for your hair, your skin, your nails, and your brain. Then learn to nourish your body and stop counting calories. So calories, everyone wants to count calories. We must know what calories are and we must understand them, but not all calories are equal. So it's really important to know that at this point in your life, during the perimenopause and the menopause, that you are nourishing your body. We want to support hormone function. We want to support increased muscle mass. We want to support a functional body. And you can't do that if you are not nourishing yourself. So again, understand calories, but don't chase the number. We want to chase wellness, not numbers. All food groups are important. There's a big shift to cutting things out, okay? Yes, we want to prioritize protein, but things like carbohydrates, fats, fiber, those type of things have their place next to your protein and your vegetables. Don't cut them out. They have important functions. Portion control. It's a little bit about calories as well. So portion control over calories. Your stomach is this big. I hope you can see my fist. I can't see myself in the screen. It's this big. So it's really important to understand how much food is on your plate going into a tiny space. Again, calories are important, but portion control will override that. And essentially, if you look at it, if you keep your portions right, your calories should be okay. It's kind of the same thing. We're just reframing it. We might have to always more plants and not necessarily less meat. Okay, there was a big movement towards vegetarianism. And of course, if you are vegetarian, we can do this perfectly well because we prioritize protein in that space as well. But there was a big movement towards taking meat out, meat as in chicken, fish, and red meat. You don't necessarily need to take your meat intake down, but we do need to push our vegetables up. So it's a balance when it comes to the portion control there, but it's important that we don't cut them out. In the spirit of good gut health and improved cardiovascular disease, which is what we want to focus on fiber. Okay, we cut fiber out because we cut out the carbohydrates. So we need to focus on the fiber. Fiber helps to lower cholesterol. So while our estrogen is busy dropping, estrogen is cardioprotective. So we have no choice there. Our cholesterol will decide to go up at some point. Fiber helps to lower cholesterol and blood pressure at the same time. Also, fiber obviously keeps your gut healthy. It keeps you moving to the toilet, keeps everything 100% regular. So focusing on your fiber. Cook everything at home and avoid your processed foods. Processed foods are everywhere. We can't get away from them. So cooking your food at home becomes really, really important. In a world of convenience, it's amazing. You can get anything you want. I was talking earlier about instant gratification. You can get anything you want. But when it comes to nutrition, convenience is slowly killing us. Okay, we need to take time with your nutrition, take time for cooking, and avoid the processed foods. And processed foods, I'm not only talking about the drive-through, not only talking about that. It's the meal that you take off the shelf in the supermarket. That you come home and you've been to the shop and you come home and you turn on your oven and you put that into the oven and you warm it up and you sit down and you have a ready-made meal, right? You didn't have to do anything. That meal contains more fat, more calories if you're counting them, more processed food, preservatives, more sugar, more salt, more of the things we don't want than if you had created it at home. And the time that it took you to go to the store, come home, warm it up, and then sit down, you could have created a really great meal from scratch at the same time. So it's about, again, reframing it, making time for really good nutrition. Less alcohol and caffeine. This is a big topic when it comes to the menopause. A lot of ladies find that alcohol starts to cause a lot of anxiety, and that's why a lot of them step away from alcohol. Also, as we get stressed, so the stress levels are rising, we're feeling uncomfortable in ourselves, a lot of people turn to alcohol to take the stress off after a stressful day. I'm not saying don't drink the alcohol, but notice how you feel after you have had, it might be 1 glass of wine, it might be 5, but notice how you feel with the alcohol if it is something that's in your day. Alcohol also affects sleep. So it might help you fall asleep, but in the night, your body is trying to process that alcohol. So it actually wakes you up and you have a very broken sleep throughout the night. And caffeine is the same. Caffeine starts to cause a few jitters. A lot of people notice that as well. So decaffeinated where you can, or drink your coffee or your tea up until midday and then switch back to water. There's many ways to do these things. And I don't think the answer is none. The answer is never none of anything. It's less. So what works for you is really, really important. Removing sugar, and I've put where possible there because sugar is everywhere, and to avoid sugar is absolutely impossible. Sugar in the nutrition world is the devil. Okay, we need to avoid it where we can. I'm not saying don't have a chocolate or don't have an ice cream or whatever it might be, because those type of things are important, but it's about being mindful about where these things are in our daily life and daily habits. So again, it's the habits. The sugar comes in on the habits. And then smart snacking is another point. So if you are someone who snacks, so what we find is you either snack or you don't. There's people who like to nibble through the day. Your intake, if you are a snacker, 30% of your calorie intake for the day comes from snacking. Okay, so if you are snacking on sweet things, sugary things, then we're just bringing more unnecessary things into our diet. So we need to pay attention. Again, it's taking time to make sure we've got the right things around when it comes to snacking. Sorry. Yes, then hydration, water, water, water. I can't say it enough. Our bodies cannot function if we are dehydrated. Your gut health, going to the toilet, your skin, your hair, sleep relies on hydration. Another thing is that our hunger hormones and our hunger reflex and the thirst reflex are the same. So if we are not drinking water, a lot of people say to me, but I'm just not thirsty, because you've trained yourself to not be thirsty, but you're hungry all the time. So if you pop a glass of water in there, often you don't need to snack. And from an energy point of view, if all day long you're yawning and, oh, I'm so tired, if you have a glass of water, it often picks your energy levels up. So focus always on water. It's a tough one, but it's a really, really big habit that we need to be there. Food first. In a world of supplementation, I mean, you can supplement absolutely anything these days, and they do have their place. I'm not saying we don't need supplements. They do have their place, but always food first. If your nutrition is not good and your gut health is not good, but you're taking a supplement, it's not going to be absorbed properly anyway. So it's really important to go food first, gut health, then supplements if you need it. And then the last point that I talk about a lot is exercise. I should say we, as in people who are going through the perimenopause now and older, come from a world that was cardio obsessed. It was aerobics, it was body pump, it was bums and tums, Zumba, step classes, you name it. It was just cardio. So to change our minds and suddenly, decrease the cardiovascular exercise and push the weight training, because again, in that world, it was only the men who were ever weight training, is a difficult concept. It really is. But it is very, very important that we start including weight training into our exercise routine. Cardiovascular exercise is very important. So walking, jogging, running, cycling, swimming, very, very important, because we want to keep the strength of our heart. But the weight training is there to improve our body composition. So we want more muscle mass, and we want the more muscle you have, the more fat. I mean, the less fat that you have, but also having a higher muscle mass improves your bone density. So they kind of go hand in hand, right? Also, the more muscle mass you have, the higher your testosterone is. So women will never bulk out like a man does. We don't have enough testosterone even when we're younger, but we want to keep maximizing our testosterone while it's on the out. So making sure that your exercise routine has weight training inside it. But at the end of the day, we can talk about all of these things. It is the lifestyle that matters. So if you think back to the little circle on the other page, we need to have a whole lifestyle approach to it. We can't just take one little bit, because that's useless to anybody, because the whole cycle needs to be running in the right direction all the time. So my final thoughts, I'm just taking the time here, my final thoughts is that there is so much information. I'm sure you see it every day if you're on Instagram and those type of things. But it's really, really important that you focus on yourself. Your journey, yes, I said in the beginning, all of us will go through the menopause, all of us. How we go through it is completely different because our bodies are different. So focus on yourself, focus on your journey. Your mum, your sister, your best friend, your auntie, our symptoms might be the same, but how we manage it needs to be personalized. You need to commit to your wellness, and you need to understand that wellness needs to be intentional. It doesn't just happen overnight. We need to focus all the time on what we are doing. So we don't need to obsess about it, but we need to be mindful all the time about what's happening, how we are feeling, plan things ahead. We plan our lives. Our diaries are full all the time, but we can't plan our nutrition strategies. So take time to just plan and focus on yourself for a minute. There's nothing wrong with seeking help in something that seems so simple as nutrition. If it was simple, this whole process, so nutrition it can be simple. It's not easy, but it can be simple. But this process of going through the menopause, the perimenopause, and how everything is uprooted and we're not feeling great, if it really was that simple, surely we would all be well and we would all be happy, but we're not. So something needs to change. We need to make sure that we're focusing on ourselves and taking time from a nutrition point of view. It really, really can change your life and it can make you feel so much better. So I could go on and on and on, but I think I'm done for now. Are there any questions? Yes, I hope I haven't opened too many Pandora's boxes, but please do let us know if there's anything.
That's brilliant, Louise. Thank you very much. Louise and I will just stay on for the questions. So feel free to keep popping them into the chat. I'll read them out. I don't know if you've seen anything so far, Louise. A couple really, really good ones. So let's see what we can do here. Tracy wanted, the first question that popped in here was around fasting and eating one meal a day, which she tried herself and felt a lot better for. But her concern is that she's not actually getting enough good nutrition. Do you think you can sort of on a single meal a day balance things out and still tick the boxes that you'd mentioned?
So fasting is a tricky one because we always advocate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But at the same time, I'm also a big believer of eating when you are hungry. So if you are fasting and you're not counting down the minutes to your next meal, then it could be okay. The research around fasting in the perimenopause is not great. It's better once you've gone through to the other side. But can you get what you need out of one meal a day? Probably not. You won't be able to get your protein intake through the day that you need for a whole day. And probably you wouldn't be able to get your fiber intake either or your carbohydrates. So what tends to happen there is we are just surviving. So there's that saying that you want to thrive and not survive. And in that state, you do kind of just survive. You might be managing your weight, you know, everything might be okay. But for that specific question, I would say, you know, kind of sit down and think about where you could improve. I don't think you could get absolutely everything from one meal a day, particularly your protein. And we want to focus on protein for all those reasons that we spoke about.
Megan had a question around hot flushes and if there's anything you can do from a nutritional point of view to support or manage them.
So that is a lot to do with hormone shifting and how your body is dealing with that. You know, we can avoid hot foods. I mean, it sounds so silly when you say it out loud, but avoiding hot foods as in things with spice, because that does already rise, it causes a hot flush in itself. But no, not really. We would go for more of an anti-inflammatory type of thing. So if you are eating well and you're eating fresh, less preservatives, all of those type of things would help. But from a nutritional point of view, there's not much we can do to kind of flatten them out. Also, there's a big histamine change. There's a big histamine response as you go through the menopause as well. And those hot flashes can be linked to a histamine response. So again, fresh, less preservatives, less salt, less sugar, so that your body can function well and that hormone detoxification is working well. But yeah, that's probably as far as you'll get from a nutrition point of view.
Zenobia had a good question on creatine, so something that she had seen on social media, where a lot of us get our information from. But do you have an opinion on it, particularly in line with training and maybe a bit of a strength focus and muscle health?
So creatine is great. It is a good supplement if it falls in line with what you want to do. So a lot of women are worried about weight. So yes, we want to move away from weight, but we'll never get away from the fact that that number on the scale means a lot. It affects how we function. So from a creatine point of view, what creatine does is it moves water into your muscles so that it helps with muscle regeneration and muscle recovery. So it leaves you feeling stronger. So from a body composition point of view, yes. Do you need it? No, because you can get creatine. We get creatine from animal products. So you can get it in your diet, but again, it's a personal thing. So if you want to take your training further, if you want to, feel stronger, better recovery, all of that jazz, then use it. But I don't think it's a supplement that everybody should be using. It's a very controversial thing all over the place. People are either very for creatine or not. It's a very personal approach. But also remember, with creatine, you either respond or you don't. It's not one of those that's going to help everybody. So I would use it carefully. And again, depends what the goals are, but not a no, but not a hard yes.
But I mean, it was a good question around sort of the muscle health side, and good to see sort of that resonating with some listeners. There was another around the resistance training that you recommend, and just it was for Leanne, I think, around using bands instead of weights. Is that a form of resistance training as well?
It definitely is, because with the resistance, with the bands, we are resisting both ways, so you're getting the effect both ways. The only issue with a band is that you can't increase your weight. So obviously we can increase the resistance, but the bands also kind of stop at a certain resistance because you can't keep pulling, and sometimes they get too tight that we can't pull. So there's definitely a space for using bands as resistance training. But it depends how far you want to take your training. Again, it's going to cause what's the word I'm looking for? Different shape. So, when we use heavy weights, you change the shape of the muscle. Whereas if you're using a band, it's probably more conditioning and lengthening and strengthening rather than the bulk out of the muscle. So very good way to train. But again, it depends on your personal goals.
And perhaps just a safe introduction.
Yeah, definitely.
Could use. Liesel wanted to know if, and this was a good question when I was thinking of, that might speak a little bit to people who come to you in practice, but where to start. She wanted to know if it's worth sort of upfront seeing a dietitian, or first trying to implement some of these changes that you mentioned before sort of seeking additional support. Do you think there's kind of some things that stand out for someone when to go and get a little bit of extra help?
Yeah, so I think it's always good. It depends on the type of person you are, but it's always good to sit with someone and discuss these things, because we are all different. So I would always say go and speak to someone off the cuff, but you can start implementing things on your own. So all of those things we spoke about, I would start with cooking things at home. Cooking things at home, drinking a lot of water, decreasing your alcohol and sugar intake, always prioritizing your protein. If you can get those 4 along with your exercise, so 5, then the others kind of fall into place. Again, depends on the goals and what other issues are sitting under there. But if you wanted to start on your own, always start with cooking your food at home and getting rid of the processed foods that we have everywhere.
To wrap it up, I think just one last question. We didn't specifically cover it, but it's just a bit of a theme across a few questions here. Sort of energy levels is one, and it speaks a little bit to sleep. So perhaps just a final word on maybe the importance of sleep, the things that you've mentioned, are they going to help with that? Obviously, you've spoken about how people are feeling and the things that, cause us to snack or not want to exercise. And obviously, in my mind, some of that does speak to quality and quantity of sleep.
So sleep is really, really, really important. Our sleep affects our hunger and satiety hormones. So if you're not sleeping well, I mean, we've all had it. When you've had a bad night's sleep, you're hungry the whole day. It doesn't matter what you do to stop that. So sleep is really important in terms of regulating hormones. Energy through the day obviously relies on sleep. So if you're not sleeping well, we need to work that out. But sleep is then connected to hydration. So if you are not well hydrated, then that can affect your sleep. Alcohol and caffeine are very big, and sugar. So sometimes after an evening meal, we sit down in front of the TV and have a piece of chocolate. If you are sensitive to it, that tiny piece of chocolate, which also has caffeine in it, and the sugar is going to affect you, not there and then. You will go to sleep, but it will wake you up later in the thing. So looking at what you're doing in the evening. A lot of women also wake up in the night to go to the toilet. So also that's a hormone shift. But if you are doing that, maybe focus on drinking less after 5 p.m. So get your water intake earlier in the day. There's also a big research and a lot of theory around carbohydrates in the evening and how they actually help sleep. So a lot of people cut the carbohydrate out. But what carbohydrates do is they improve your dopamine response. And dopamine helps you to calm down a little bit because you're feeling happy, so there's less anxiety. But then it also helps you to sleep. And then that theory then relates to being full. So if you leave the carbohydrate out, sometimes while the protein does keep you more satiated, a lot of people get hungry. So you're waking up possibly because you're hungry. So when it comes to sleep, there's everything, and your stress obviously is going to affect that as well. But now when we're tired, we don't want to exercise. But exercise drives sleep. So, and I know it's easy for me to say this, and I also get affected by it some days where you just don't want to do it, just don't want to move. It's much easier to have a cup of tea and another biscuit. Okay. So force yourself out the door. Make sure that you make time for exercise. There's a big difference between exercise and movement. But if you don't want to exercise, move. Get out and go and walk. Be outside, de-stress. The more we force ourselves to exercise, the better sleep response we have. So again, we don't want to exercise because we're tired, but then it'll make you sleep better. So we have to kind of take all of the bits when it comes to sleep. It starts from the moment we wake up and what we're doing through the day. So I don't know if that answers the question, but definitely making sure that when it comes to sleep, we're looking at absolutely everything to improve it.
Super. That's great, Louise. Thank you very much. And everyone who's hung on here, you've all hung around for the questions as well, which is great. It means kind of hanging on the words here and the advice. Please feedback on the form for the link that I've just shared, and in there, if there's additional deep dives into some of these topics that Louise has brought up, we'd love to get it back. And we've just scratched the surface today, and with the other topics as well. Louise, thank you very much. I think a takeout from this really is that it's holistic and lifestyle based, and nothing vastly different for the period that we're going through, but just the importance of it is that much more highlighted, and focusing on your food and your food choices, making good decisions, being active and moving, sleeping well, and importantly, I think getting the support that you mentioned, be it at home or from an expert in the field where you need it, to navigate that transition. I did pop your email address into the chat, if you don't mind, for people who are asking for additional info. So please feel free to reach out to Louise if you have any other questions as well.
Thanks, Adrian, and thank you, everybody. Again, I've got just one last thing. I'll go on forever. But what Adrian was saying now is it's nothing new. And we all know what to do. And I think I say this every day as well. We all know what's right and wrong. But it's taking time to stress the importance of it and to focus on yourself. So that's the most important part, I think, because we all know we must drink water and eat vegetables, but we don't do it because we're too busy. So focus on yourself and focus on your wellness, and I think everyone will feel so much better for it.
Brilliant. Can't wrap it up any better than that. Louise, thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for coming on. Brilliant.
Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Thank you for your time, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with the session. Watch out for from our side on a topic. If there's anything else you'd like to hear from us, please feel free to feedback. Have a great Wednesday, everyone. Louise, thank you, and have a good afternoon. We'll chat again soon.
Thank you. Bye.